Today's gospel is from Luke, chapter 14. Now large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and said to them, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not first sit down and estimate the cost to see whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he laid a foundation and is not able to finish it, all who see it will begin to ridicule him, saying, 'This fellow began to build and was not able to finish.' Or what king going out to wage war against another king will not sit down first and consider whether he is able, with 10,000, to oppose the one who comes against him with 20,000? If he cannot, then while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks for the terms of peace. So therefore none of you can become my disciple if you do not give up all your possessions."
Let us pray. Our Lord, may your words only be spoken and your words only heard, and we ask this all for your love's precious sake. Amen. Kids Chapel, actually 3 classes today. 2 are usual classes, and then another class taught by a clergy person, who today will be Ann, so that's kind of exciting, new for this fall. We hope it'll help us do a better job with Kids Chapel. Thanks to everybody who sort of got in the spirit of things this morning and wore a costume of sorts. The good news is, if you didn't have a chance to get the costume together, this is actually a 2-week sermon series, sort of a little mini sermon series. So we're going to talk about superheroes again next week. So if you want to get your costume right or do it big, you got another week, all right? So wow us next week. Wow us next week, all right? I've heard some plans for some cool Wonder Woman costumes. Think that might be neat. Okay. Well, we are in a sermon series where we're going to be asking what makes a superhero. And what we're going to find is that what makes a superhero is actually the same thing that makes us human in the best sense of a word. That what makes a superhero super is that they exemplify our highest and best ideals. That what makes a superhero is what makes for a super life, that behind the mask and the cape, they exemplify the kind of life that we want to live. And though I've been reading comic books since I was a little kid, and somebody said when they commented on this sermon, they said, "Oh, my 4-year-old son would love this," and I thought, well, that's probably why I love it too, because my inner 4-year-old is probably still alive and well. But it's not just kids who are reading comics anymore. It's not just kids who are taking in superhero stories with gusto. The number 1 grossing movie of all time for a weekend gross is The Avengers, a superhero movie, ahead of any other movie. In fact, Avengers has set 28 box office records, in and of itself, higher again than any other movie. Batman's Dark Knight isn't far behind that. This past summer, Iron Man 3 was the top grossing movie. And number 2 is Despicable Me 2, and I think you could argue that that is sort of a superhero movie too. And number 3 was Superman, Man of Steel. And so these movies have grown in popularity, and their popularity has increased all across the demographics. Young and old, men and women, all love superhero stories. And what's interesting to me is that superhero stories have sort of come into their own. I think I could make a case for this. Superhero stories have come into their own as faith stories, traditional faith stories, have tended to recede into the cultural background. And as all of us know, if you've paid attention to demographics, census statistics, and so on and so forth, that one of the quickest rising groups in America are the nuns. The nuns are those who, and it's not nuns, N-U-N-S, but it's nun, N-O-N-E-S, those who don't claim any religious affiliation. And so they're not associated with any traditional faith path. And so as the traditional faith stories and faith paths have faded into the background, the superhero stories have come into the foreground, particularly origin stories, how superhero stories, or how superheroes originated. Because just like faith stories once answered for our culture, the questions of what it means to be a human, what are our best ideals, what's our best life look like, now it's superhero stories that answer that for so many people. And I'd be willing to bet that if we went out into the larger population and we just did an impromptu survey, an informal survey, and said, this past summer, did you recreationally read the Bible? And then if we ask this past summer, did you go see a superhero movie or read a story, a novel about some hero, that more people would have seen a superhero movie, far more people would have seen a superhero movie, read a novel about heroes or superheroes than just recreationally opened the Bible. And so that's to say that when we look at cultural impact, as the one perhaps wanes, the other is gaining in importance and shaping our thinking about what a life well lived looks like. But here's the interesting thing about that, is that so often these superhero stories and these origin stories are actually our old faith stories. They're just repackaged. They draw upon the same values. Many times they actually draw upon the very same characters. They just rename them. For instance, the movie Superman, Man of Steel, this summer, David Goyer was a screenwriter. And David Goyer said, when I wrote that movie, I was thinking about the Bible. The Bible was what was playing through my head. And if you've seen the movie, you know it is loaded with Judeo-Christian imagery. And what he said is, in my mind, I wanted Superman to be a fusion of Jesus and Moses. And what he might not know, because he might not be particularly devoted to the Christian faith himself, but that Jesus himself is a fusion of Jesus and Moses. So the best of Moses lives on in Jesus. So Superman captures that old story, tells it in a new way for a new generation. And it just may be that it helps us remember some of these truths that have been so essential to human beings from the very dawn of time. Another superhero of stories of sorts, it says, from the very beginning, you know the end. You know what that one is, Trevor? From the very beginning, you know, you've played it. From the very beginning, you know the end. And what happens in this story is that you know from the very start, at the end, you're going to die. But you also know that you've been chosen for a mission, and that the fate of humanity rests upon this mission. So you enter into the story and give your life for the sake of the world. Does that sound familiar? Sounds like Christianity, doesn't it? Because it is. It's the gospel message, but it's also Halo Reach. It's also Halo Reach. And in Halo Reach, anybody who thinks video games are Pong like what we used to play, they are not. I mean, they are some of the most powerful purveyors of values in our culture today. And so in one of the final missions in the game, it's a pivotal mission. This character, really cool character, a guy by the name of Emil. And it's going to be his last mission, actually. He's not going to make it through. And they get this mission, and he says, if it were easy, it wouldn't be a noble mission. And it's a play on words, because the characters in this game are all part of a noble team. That's what they're called, noble team. And so whenever they're given their mission, it's a noble mission. But it's also teaching people about what it means to live a noble life. What it means to accept the noble mission in our lives. If it were easy, it wouldn't be a noble mission. If our mission in life doesn't challenge us, if it doesn't call forth the best in us, if it doesn't draw upon reserves that we didn't even know we have, so it helps us be better than we ever thought we could be, if it doesn't put us in touch with something far bigger than ourselves, if it were easy, it's not a noble mission. And this is what makes a superhero a superhero. It's not the costume they wear. Don't ask me who this is. It's just the only thing we can find laying around the house. We'll see if we can do better next week. It's not the costumes they wear. Supervillains wear costumes too, and some of theirs are really cool. It's not the superpower they have. Supervillains have superpowers too, so it's not the superpower that makes a superhero. It's not even the buff bodies. Supervillains are really buff too. So what makes a superhero is the decision they make. The decision they make to accept their mission for the sake of the world, no matter what the cost. And if you've ever read a comic book or seen a superhero movie, you know that accepting that mission always comes with a very high cost. And this is what Jesus is saying us in today's gospel as well. He's saying that not only is this what makes a superhero, but this is what makes a Christian. This is what makes a person a follower of Jesus Christ, that they too make that decision to accept their mission. That we too have a mission, and in some way, shape, or form, the fate of the world rests upon it. We've said this before. Every single person is either, bringing heaven to earth or bringing hell to earth. The way we live, the things we do, the decisions we make, we're either making earth a little bit more like heaven or we're making earth a little bit more like hell. Lord knows there's plenty of people who are making this earth more like hell. What we need are those people who accept their noble mission. It would not be, if it's easy, it's not a noble mission. We need those people who accept the noble mission and make earth more like heaven. So what is our mission? Our mission, quite simply, our mission is the same mission as the mission of a superhero. Our mission is the same mission as the mission of Jesus Christ. Our mission is the mission to help. Plain and simple, to help. To help God accomplish His purposes in the world. And it gives us that great privilege of partnering with Him in creating a new heaven and a new earth. Our mission is to help people whenever and wherever we can. Our mission is to help create a better future, and all of us have a hand in creating the future that's before us in this planet. Our mission is to join the battle of good and evil and help good win the day, to push back the forces of darkness, to vanquish evil. That's our mission. And should we choose to accept it, we'll pay a price for that as well. But Jesus' promise is that it's worth it, because it'll make us better than we ever thought we could be, and it'll put us in touch with something far bigger than ourselves, and it will create a life that we can be proud of, a life where we know that we've had a positive impact on the people and world around us, a life that we know brings pleasure to God Almighty's heart. And so our mission, should we choose to accept it, our mission is to live the life of a giver as opposed to the life of a taker. Superheroes are givers. Jesus was a giver. Supervillains, takers. They use their superpowers for their own personal gain, to further their own personal agenda. A superhero uses their power, their own ability to make the world a better place, to help people. And the gospel is that we discover our own unique abilities, the abilities that God gave to you and to you alone, that we develop those abilities, and that we don't just use them to make money, to further our own personal agenda, but we use those gifts and abilities to help, and to help people, to help make a better future, to help vanquish evil and push back the darkness. There's a book by a guy by the name of Adam Grant, and it's called Givers and Takers. It's a great book, a relatively new book. And in it, he helps to distinguish between givers and takers, and he does this by creating two lists of the characteristics of givers and takers. The first list are the characteristics that exemplify a taker. And on that list, there's 4 characteristics. Takers are typically concerned with wealth. Their lives revolve around money, the acquisition of material things, possessions, so on and so forth. Power. Winning is the last one, and pleasure, simply enjoying life, which sounds good, but we're talking about enjoying life even when it doesn't really help anybody else. So those are the 4 marks of a taker. Wealth, concerned with material things. Power, improving one's position in life. Enjoyment, just living life for what feels good for us. And what was the last one? Winning, yeah, thank you, that's right. Good, thank you. Winning. And then on the other list, the list for givers, on that list is the principal characteristics are help, living a life where our primary concern is helping other people, compassion, responsibility, and social justice. Those become the marks of a life that is exempt, where a person is a giver. And maybe one way we could think about the trajectory of our life. Which are you? Which am I? Are you a giver or are you a taker? What am I? Am I a giver or am I a taker? It's a good question. It's an important question to ask. It's a very important question to ask. In fact, there might not be any more important question we could ask. And so one way maybe to get at the answer to that is to think about the trajectory of our life. And we can just be real specific. Let's think about what we did yesterday. All right, let's think about what we did yesterday. So yesterday, did we spend our time doing work? Because work's how we make money. So we have a day before us, and there's all the things we could do, and what we do is we use that day to make money. Did we spend that day caring for the material things we have? Did we devote it to polishing the car, washing the car, cleaning the house, fixing up the house? Did we devote the day to shopping, to buying new things, even though did the day revolve around material stuff? Winning. Did the day yesterday, and we think our interactions, our relationships, the times we spent with people, did we have to have our own way? Did we spend our day trying to have our own way? Right here, there we go. Okay, do we think about trying to have our own day and have our own way? Did we spend the day trying to control people? Yeah, that's what winning looks like in relational circumstances. Did we spend the day doing things like this? And then, so we can think about how we spent the day yesterday. And then we can think about, and to some extent, some of those things are necessary. Some of those things are important. We have to do some of those things. But the big question is, were there other things that countered that? Were there other things that balanced that? Pleasure. Did we spend the day yesterday doing what's pleasurable for us, even if nobody else benefited from it? Just doing what we like to do. I mean, that's actually what animals do. That's not what makes us human. Something different makes us human. So it's not that these things aren't important. It's not that these things aren't going to have some role in our life. But the question is, was there something that countered those things? And so when we look at the day yesterday, did we help other people? Particularly people beyond our own family. Are there people we can look at and say, you know what, I spent some time just helping people. No benefit to myself. Did we help people yesterday? Were we compassionate yesterday? Were we aware of the needs of the people around us? Did we spend time with people who are hurting? Did we do something to help people? And if we're not aware of somebody who's hurting, if somebody's in a tough way, somebody we could give a call, somebody we could help out, well, that in itself just says buckets. I mean, that in itself just says, just has a lot of stuff to say. Were we responsible? Do we keep our promises? We told people we'd spend some time with them. We said we'll do this someday. Did we keep those promises to people? Did we keep the vows we made when we made our marriages? Were we on time? When we're not on time, when we're always running late, what we're saying is life runs on my time and my agenda. I don't care about yours. My time, my agenda is the most important. And so these become, the sorts of questions that these two need to balance themselves out. And if our life leans towards one of those lists other than the other, if it leans toward the taker qualities, well, then guess what? Then Jesus has a very important word for you today. He has a very important word for me today. Then superhero stories have a very important word for you today. And they have a very important word for me today. And that is that, friends, we have a mission. And that mission is to help whenever and wherever we can. And that when we live lives that are principally about our own personal gain, our own personal advantage, our own personal agenda, man, that's the mark of a taker. That's partnering with the wrong side. That's deciding for the side that we don't want to win. And Jesus in this gospel, just very quickly, says there's principally two things that get in the way of being a giver. First, he says, is money. Possessions. And that's we all know that. I don't need to say, probably don't even need to say anything else about that. The pursuit of money, the business, the busyness that comes in the pursuit of money and financing the lifestyles we're so accustomed to living, man, that gets in the way of compassion like nothing else does. If we spend, financing lives that we live, doing things we need to make the money we make, just doesn't leave any time for anybody other than ourselves. Right? So I don't need to say anything more about that. The second one is a little bit more surprising. He says the second thing that often gets in the way of being takers rather than givers, being givers rather than takers, is family. And when he told this, he was principally talking about cycles of revenge. You think Hatfields and McCoys. You think about family feuds. And what Jesus was saying is, if you want to be my disciple, if you want to be part of something bigger than yourself, if you want to be part of the reign of God's kingdom on earth, the reign of love, then you need to forgive rather than retaliate. You need to exercise kindness rather than vengeance. And that is just as true today as it was back then. It's very important in our families. If we want to be a part of what God is doing in the world, if we want to be part of establishing His kingdom of love, then we need to forgive rather than retaliate. We need to exercise kindness and love rather than seeking, to hurt those who have hurt us, to stick it to them like they've stuck it to us, and stick it to them even better. And maybe do it in a way that we can seem like we don't even know that we're doing it. Oh, I did that? Oh, I said that? Really? Gee. So we're called to do that, and I completely lost my track of where I was on that. So, we have family. So family that we can, one way is seeking revenge, and we need to not do that. We need to seek forgiveness. But I think there's another way that Jesus might apply that. And the other way I think he might apply that is that in our day and age, in our cultures, and I know this hurts a little bit, and I'm just as guilty of this as you are. So believe me, I'm not talking to you. I'm kind of talking to me, all right? Is that families can become such self-centered things. Families can become such self-serving things. And what happens is we have these pictures of these perfect little lives. And social media doesn't help us because social media is like highlight reels. And it's like the highlights of a football game. People say, I have this great life, when they have anything but a great life, believe me. And I got the perfect kids, and I'm doing these great things, and I'm making lots of money, and my business is a success, and I'm going to all these exotic places, and we say, wow, they have a perfect life. And we don't really know them because we're just seeing snippets of them, but we know us. And you know what we know? Our life isn't perfect. Far from it. And so we feel this great pressure to create this perfect life. And so families, man, they just invest all this time and energy. And individuals do this too. It's not just families. Invest all the time and energy in creating the perfect family, in creating the perfect life. And so we got to pile on the activities, and we got to get more things, and we got to create an exciting image, and we got to take these, fantastic trips and all this other sort of stuff. And we attempt to create this perfect life, but it doesn't work because there is no perfect life. And so what we need to do is we need to accept the life we have and help the people who really need help. Accept the life we have. We got a pretty darn good life. And accept it for what it is and enjoy it for what it is and help the people who really need help. And what we might find is that's better for all of us. There's a story told by a guy named Stuart Brown, and I'm just about done, so hang with me just a little bit longer. He tells a story of a woman who he describes as enormously successful. She's a top of the ladder New York lawyer. She got buku money, tons of money, all kinds of stuff, very powerful in the social scene, all kinds of things. But what she admits is that she's unhappy. Actually, she calls it her dirty little secret. Because how in the world, what right does she have to be unhappy? But she knows that she is unhappy. Do you know how many people around you are unhappy? They put on a good show. You know how many people around you are unhappy? And so she's got this dirty little secret. She's unhappy despite all the stuff, despite everybody thinking, wow, she's got the perfect life. But it's far from it. And so she wants to protect her kids from her unhappiness. So she starts trying to give her kids every advance she can, putting them in the right school, engaging them in the right activities, buying for them the right things, and just giving the kids everything. And her life becomes all... And then what she realizes, she watches her kids. She realizes she cannot give them what she does not have herself. She's not happy. She can't give them happiness. No way you can do that. You can't do it either. You can't give anybody what you do not have. If you are not happy, you can't give your kids happiness. And what she realizes is that not only is she not able to give her kids what she doesn't have, but she's making it worse. She's putting them on the same track that she was on that didn't work for her. And so she's just recreating her own unhappiness in them because that's all she knows how to do. And the only solution is to get on a different track. So there's no use faking this. We can say to everybody else, my life is great, but you know you. No point faking it. No point faking it. And the thing to do is just to say, in those spots where we're feeling happy, where something isn't working, we're frustrated, we know this is, just say, you know what? This isn't working. I'm unhappy. And then take a different path. And the path we need to take, whether it's pointed out in a superhero story, whether it's pointed out in the life and teachings of Jesus, when it's talked about the great stories of our faith, is the path where we define success not in terms of material gain, but in terms of help. Where we define success not in terms of achievement or of the things that we have, but in terms of people. Where we define success not in terms of any one of a number of things, but we define success in terms of the positive impact we have on the world. So we need to redefine success. No, it will not be easy. But if it were easy, it would not be a noble mission. Amen? Amen.
Please stand as we pray the prayers of the gospel.
Am I supposed to wait here? Oh.